I am all ears. The Ghost Fancast.
Hello and welcome back to the I Am All Ears podcast with me, Alva. We got some exciting ghost news. So on the 5th of February, we had a wild bingo card. So the band Black Sabbath put up a concert poster for their final ever show, and it's going to be like a bit like a tribute show. So they're going to be involved a little bit. Ozzy's obviously going to do a little bit. The whole thing is basically a farewell for Ozzy. You're going to have bands like Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer reuniting. That's a big thing. And then underneath on the bottom, you see these people named as individual people from bands rather, and they're going to be forming this super group. And just in little text that I think it took me a while to notice because I was so hyped about like Metallica, Slayer, Black Sabbath all being in one place, I didn't even see this. You see Papa V or 5 Perpetua, and we were like, the fuck? Who is this? What? So naturally, the whole internet's blown up. I do want to deep dive into the theories with everyone later, but I think the main thing I want to talk about first. This episode's going to be split kind of into two parts, but be one episode if that makes sense. I want to talk about why this show is such a big deal, and also as a West Midlander myself, I want to talk about how, and I've literally wrote this down. Ghost legit wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Birmingham. And
No,
that's
you're
not
right.
black. If it wasn't for Birmingham,
Yeah,
we wouldn't be here.
you wouldn't have Metallica, you wouldn't have any of them, you wouldn't have Slayer, you wouldn't...
Literally no one. I think a lot of Ghost fans aren't necessarily fans of metal or don't really know the history of metal and where it came from. So I kind of want to do. It was quite funny because I said about doing this episode as a joke a couple of months back, saying like, I'd love to do an episode just on the importance of Birmingham and how in the music industry and how it snowballed into we have ghosts now because of it. And then with this show coming up, I was like, you know what? It actually makes sense to talk about this now because I think a lot of people haven't taken the time to understand why this show is happening, why it's happening in the West Midlands, and why Tobias is going.
Why
So
all these people are going, like...
yeah, not just Tobias. Like, it's just so many
Like
people.
it's like it's like one of the most insane lineups I've seen for like a musical event in like the metal world.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's going to be like by the time this episode comes out, the tickets will have gone on sale, and I don't know what my outcome is going to be. But obviously, I live like 18 minutes down the road from where it's going to be, so I feel like it's a birthright at this point. And I would like to point out, I'm not just going because of Tobias is going to be there. I've been to see Sabbath like twice. I've seen Ozzy once. I had tickets for Ozzy for 5 years before he cancelled. As well as everyone else on the lineup. Some of my favorite bands who I've been lucky enough to see, but to see all these people together in like my hometown is like such a big thing. So hopefully by the time this episode's come out, I can be happy and be like, yes, I got a ticket. But at this point of recording on the 8th of February, the tickets aren't on sale yet, but we'll see. But yeah, it's insane. And like I said, we got that. That was already insane enough as it is, and then we got the literally Ozzy Osbourne leaking Papa 5 was not on my bingo card.
Tobias sitting somewhere going, God damn it, but also that's really cool, but also shit!
Yeah. How cool is it for him though?
And then not long after that post, Ghost posted on their own with that little tour poster picture, whatever, as well as a picture with purple smoke that's like V is coming to Birmingham.
Yeah. This is so surreal for me, just like being like from Birmingham, just like seeing us being. I know we've got a tour date in April, but just seeing us acknowledged in this way, not only by Ghost but by everyone, it's like insane. I kind of want to get onto that a bit later as well, with why I feel so strong about this. But yeah, like I said, I'll get to that, and we'll also, like I said, we'll get into the theories that we have with the new Papa. Right, I'm gonna dive in. I don't. This is probably gonna be me yapping for however long it takes, but obviously, you guys feel free to join in with your thoughts and opinions. So, the history of metal and Birmingham's play of the founding of metal we know today. If I was a university student, that's what I write. This is my dissertation. I didn't actually do my dissertation on this. I kind of wish I did. So this is really good documentary. If you want to do like a too long didn't read sort of thing. There's this documentary called Heavy Metal Britannia. That's a really good
Mm.
watch. So really, this all kind of started, and you got to stay with me on this. The West Midlands, more like mostly the Birmingham and the Black Country area of England, was literally like the epicenter of the Industrial Revolution. You know, it was like the main place where like metal was being made, as in like actual metal.
Yeah.
Like the West Midlands, like especially my area, made like the chains and the anchor for the Titanic. The
Mm.
anchor did very well. I'm just saying, like it's
Listen, there's a sign outside the Belfast docks that says it was fine when it left us, okay?
yeah.
So, literally,
Because
there's a sign that says it was fine when it left us. So, I don't know what you said yet.
but it was obviously like we had this big wave with the Industrial Revolution. Specifically the area of the Black Country where I'm from. We, by the way, we got that name because of we were so industrialized. The sky was literally black, and I think Queen Victoria, as she was riding through, she wrote down in her diary it was sort of red by day, black by night, and that's why we got that name. Because I know a few Americans have been like, "The Black Country? What the what?" And they get a bit panicked, and I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
don't worry. It's not like it's not what you think."
It's not racist, it's just pollution.
Yeah, we've
Woo!
just a bunch of kids dying in mines.
Yeah.
Also, like with Impera being so slightly influenced by the Industrial Revolution, I'll get a little bit of a hit moment with that. I know it's more London based, and that was the kind of era he was going for, but also by proxy, we, like I said, we own that shit. I do recommend though, if anyone's coming over for tour to Midlands, either for the Ghost tour or for this Sabbath show, I do urge people to go to visit the Black Country Museum because it shows a different side of England, like that's not just the Victorian London style of England, because it's a living museum where people are dressed up and reenact and they speak the way that we speak, especially with the stronger dialect. And you can actually still see where, like, they've got people actually making stuff in the forges and like the foundries as if they were creating them for the trade. Like,
Yeah.
it's really fascinating to watch. You may be thinking, why the fuck are you going on about this? But believe me, this I'm about to get onto why this is still relevant.
Yeah. History is.
History is important. So fast forward to sort of like the 50s and 60s, Birmingham and the Midlands kind of stayed within this industry, whereas like London and other countries down south were sort of becoming that kind of yuppie, business orientated. Technology was moving forward. We stayed very close to that sort of industry with metal steel factories and you know that stuff. This is where this still comes to play in to the foundation of metal, as in the music genre. So I have a quote here by Rob Halford of Judas Priest, and he says, this is just a paraphrase. It was from the Heavy Metal Britannia show that I mentioned earlier, and he basically said that you could sort of hear the metal as it was being sort of pounded. You could taste it because there was just like all these particles in the air. So it was literally all around at that time. And then Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest also said, like, he'd be in school and the classroom would be shaking because of like the steel mill in the distance banging, and like the kids in the schools just couldn't get that banging out of their head when they went to bed at night because it would just be like, doo, 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 doo. So yeah, obviously a lot of these kids growing up in the 50s, even earlier as 40s, 50s, 60s, who were going to come on to form these bands, they were literally surrounded by factories and like heavy noises and machinery and
Literal heavy metal.
literal heavy metal. Obviously, jumping back a little bit, obviously, the start of heavy metal is questioned because you've got things like Robert Johnson when he did that whole selling his soul for the devil for a guitar to
I
be able to play
love
guitar.
that.
Elvis, when he wasn't allowed to, he was like, this is the devil's music because he's gyrating. You've got things like the Kinks, because when You Really Got Me, the song came out, Ray Davis was like, "Oh yeah, I got that sound by slashing up a speaker." And then sort of towards the later 60s, you had things like Arthur Brown's Fire, which if you look at him, by the way, his face paint is very much like Primo's. Like, it's insane.
Hmm.
And you've also got Scream Jay Hawkins's "I Put a Spell on You," and this was the kind of like starting point where like the occult was starting to come into music,
Yeah.
and obviously the public was shitting themselves. So then we kind of come on to Sabbath. You got Ozzy Osbourne, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, and Bill Ward, who are these four really extremely working class guys in Aston, Birmingham. Like, they were playing in bomb sites from World War II, because I think a lot of people still forget about Birmingham in the Midlands with World War II, because whenever anyone thinks about Blitzkrieg, they always think about London and people going into the underground, but
Yeah.
we also did get pummeled as well. So as kids, they were like playing in the rubble, they were hitting stones against metal sheets and things like that. And even growing up, continued to be so working class because, like I said, there was this industry that people just sort of kept falling into line to rather than sort of making anything of themselves. And this is one of the things why I said I really wanted to touch upon this, because there's this sort of stereotype that to this day still happens in the Midlands, where if you say you're from Birmingham, people just sort of automatically assume that you're stupid, you're not going to amount to much, that you're not very well educated, partly because of the way we speak, but also partly because a lot of people just sort of they go into like these basic trades and then just never really do a lot with their lives, and they kind of get stuck with one thing and then never move on.
Mm-hmm.
It's classism.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Like, we're sort of looked upon as like the joke of the country. Basically, silence was voted a more attractive accent than ours.
I love the Birmingham accent. I think it's great.
It obviously coming from there's something comforting about it. My
Yeah.
accent, I've lived down south for 7 years before I moved back 3 years ago, and obviously because when I moved to university, and obviously doing stuff like this, you're so self-conscious about not wanting to be stupid that you alter it a little bit. So that's high tangent. Anyway, so back to Ozzy. He basically heard "She Loves You" by the Beatles and was just like blown away and was like, "Oh my god, this is what I want to do." On a side note of that,
I just think it's so funny. You have to be, I just want to do that. Cut to the bat.
well, I've got something to say on that, which is quite funny, given that that was like his like light bulb moment.
Yeah, it's just funny. It's like what you call it. It's like H.R. Giger seeing a little pony and being like, "Oh, I want to do art," and then create an alien. It's the same.
Literally. So going back to the Midlands and being like the industrial epicenter, obviously loads of people as soon as they left school, they were just going to work in factories. And an unfortunate incident literally was actually the kickstart into why metal sounds the way it does today and why our favorite bands sound the way they do. So Tony Iommi, who would eventually go on to become Black Sabbath's guitarist, he worked in a steel mill factory, and he was working on some sort of machine that had some sort of guillotine type press.
Ooh.
I think I've got this quote here, and he's not really said exactly how it happened, but basically he was just working the machine, and there was a problem with it that it hadn't been welded properly, but they just he just carried on using it, and he ended up cutting the ends of his fingers off.
God.
And he was already an aspiring guitarist at this point, and he was like, "That's it, my life's over. I'm never going to become a guitar player." He then got put onto a guitarist called Django Reinhardt, who was a guitarist who only actually had two working fingers. I think he had like the middle one and the pinky one cut off, like completely. He's like
Yeah.
Tony Iommi still had the majority of the finger. He just didn't have like the tips, so he had like sort of shorter fingers. So after hearing what he could achieve, he was like, "Right, I'm going to make this work." And he um, he melted down rather some washing up liquid bottles into thimbles to put on the edge of his stubs, essentially. He had to also compensate a little bit with the type of guitar strings he used. I think he used banjo strings at one point, and also by tuning down the guitar in order for him to play. But then this is what created this sort of heavy, sludgier sound that you wasn't hearing at the time. I'm not going to get into the whole history of how Sabbath met and such, because you can watch plenty of documentaries on that.
A hole opened in the ground and spat Ozzy Osbourne out from hell.
Yeah.
And the other three just happened to be standing there. And we're like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, I know there was a poster where like Ozzy had his own PA system, and he pretty much put posters up around the local area being like, "Ozzy Zick needs a gig." And because he had his own PA system, they were like, "Cool, we'll hire you." Bear in mind, this guy was dead ass broke at the time, so I think his dad helped him get that PA system. And I think Ozzy said to this day, if he did not have that PA system, he wouldn't be here today. So he thanks his dad quite a lot with this. But yeah, basically, Sabbath formed in the Midlands. They started out as a band called Earth. They played in the Crown, which was a pub in Birmingham. It's still here today. Unfortunately, it is all boarded up and is not used. And there was debates on whether it should be demolished. And luckily, the council there was a petition, and people sort of overthrew the council to keep it as like this historic landmark, because it was
Yeah.
like literally, arguably, where metal started because of their first show there. But yeah, Sabbath kind of wanted to be more sort of inspired by blues, but steering away from the sort of folky peace rock that was happening at the time. You gotta remember, this was like the late 60s, and the Vietnam War had just started. So they wanted to kind of talk about these hard topics of, like, politicians and things like that, but in a more darker way than what was going on with, like, Fleetwood Mac, let's say, at the time. They almost wanted to become the opposite of the Beatles, which is ironic because it's, like I said earlier, that was what got Ozzy started. And there's a quote here that says, "Whereas the Fab Four sang 'Yeah, yeah, yeah,' Osbourne pleaded 'No, no, no' in the song Black Sabbath." Um, and yeah, speaking of Black Sabbath as a title, they got their name from it was actually a horror movie that was directed by Mario Bava, and it was the one that was starring Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
So Geezer Butler had seen that. I think he said his brother had bought it, and he was like, rather than being called Earth, why don't we call ourselves Black Sabbath? And we're going to start incorporating, like, the sort of occults, and, like, we're already writing these songs about, like, politicians. Why don't we compare them to the devil and things? It's not us that are, Satanists. It's these
Yeah.
evil politicians. And this is where, like, you can see ties, like, that, especially with Ghost. You see, um,
That's what I always find really interesting with Black Sabbath, because like if you look, like a lot of metal is, they like, and Ghost too, they'll have Satan being kind of like not like positive in a sense, like it's like we hail Satan and all this here, but like with Black Sabbath, like Satan was still the bad guy, like,
oh
and I
yeah,
always find that so interesting,
mm,
it's just, it's funny
yeah,
how it kind of turned, the way and well, for some metal bands, and not all metal bands do that,
mm. So yeah, they changed their name to Black Sabbath, and then they recorded their album Black Sabbath, and they had a very good song on it called Black Sabbath. Um,
So nice they
so
used it 3 times.
yeah, so in the song Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath from the album Black Sabbath, it was
Released on the
like,
Sabbath.
they had these lyrics that were probably not being heard about at the time, especially in the 60s. Like this probably kickstarted, obviously, the first wave of Satanic Panic, where he's saying things like, "Satan's sitting here, he's smiling," and like people shit themselves with hear it. Also, with this song, if you hear the beginning of Death Knell, like
Yeah.
if I put this on in my ear, I can't actually tell if it's going to be Death Knell or Black Sabbath. You got things like Nib or NIB, where it's like, "My name is Lucifer, please take my hand," and then they've said that this song is, or it's meant to sort of be from Satan's point of view of falling in love, but it's almost similar to songs like "Call Me Little Sunshine," where it's like being tempted by Satan. And obviously, in a sort of Christian England in the 60s, early 70s, you're gonna shit yourself if you hear this. I mean, they themselves were getting invited to cults and like masses and things, and they were like having to hide from these people showing up at the door, being like, "Do you want to come join our cult?"
The
It's like,
opposite of a Mormon coming to your door.
um, but with like Black Sabbath now becoming established, you started to get like an off-brand of, not an off-brand, but like more and more bands were coming out. There were some bands that were kind of starting up around the same time and was getting slightly like more and more influenced by Sabbath, or there were bands that were just coming out completely fresh because of Black Sabbath. You had bands like Diamond Head coming out from Stourbridge, which is where I went to college, as in 16 to 18, not university. We call
Mm.
that period of school college here. Which Metallica covered their song "Am I Evil?" You got Judas Priest coming from sort of Warsaw and West Bromwich, which is like in the Black Country areas. Robert Plant was obviously already in Led Zeppelin prior to Sabbath, but he comes from Kidderminster. But then they were starting to get heavier and heavier as
Yeah.
Sabbath were forming. You've technically, if we're gonna like be really, really picky here, Stoke-on-Trent used to be, well, it still is a part of Staffordshire, but places like Walsall, Wolverhampton, and West Bromwich used to be under the Staffordshire category in sort of pre 1974. I had to check with my mum about this because she says she remembers when all the postcodes changed and
Yeah.
the things changed. So technically, Stoke-on-Trent used to fall under the same category as all these places where people were from, but you got people like Lemmy coming from there. Slash
Yep.
from Guns N' Roses was technically born in Stoke-on-Trent. A lot of people don't know that. He moved to. He moved to. I'm claiming him. I don't care.
He's not American. He's British.
He's British and he's a Midlander. I don't fucking care what anyone
Could
says.
you imagine him with like a Midland accent though?
Oh my
With
god!
that
can you imagine?
hair.
Alright, I'm in Guns N' Roses, AI. And yeah, like later down the line, you've got bands like Napalm Death, things like that, and that is pretty much the short story of it. So without Sabbath, all these other bands, like I said, Judas Priest are other massive name, Motorhead, which then went on to inspire Metallica and Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, who then went on to inspire like a lot of the 90s bands and so on and so on and so on. I know Tobias has said himself, like with Rats, he wanted it to sound like Ozzy Osbourne's I Don't Know. As I said earlier, you've got Death Knell, which is very Black Sabbath, the song. I know Tobias says Sabotage is his favourite Sabbath album, which is, in my opinion, a choice. I found there's this tweet from him when he had that Twitter for a whole 3 months, where he said, "Deeply into Black Sabbath 13, what an amazing album, been using it as inspiration for future work," and this was in 2014.
I will say one thing about Black Sabbath. If Black Sabbath came out today, they
It wouldn't be
wouldn't
that shocking.
No, but not even that there. They wouldn't be classed as metal. People would be like, oh, they're hard
Or
rock.
blues. Yeah.
You know? Which I just think is so funny. It just shows you just how nitpicky it's become. Like, because whenever Black Sabbath came out in the beginning, it was just like metal. Black metal was it, you know? And then Venom came out and then black metal, you know? And then it starts getting, you know, then you get Viking metal, then you get, you know, techno metal or whatever, you know? Folk metal. And it's down to the point now where everyone's so nitpicky about, you know, like, oh, that band's not metal because they don't sound like this band, or they're not metal enough, and you're just like,
Oh, I've literally seen metal elitists call Black Sabbath not metal,
yeah,
and I'm like, you, huh?
you wouldn't be wearing that Metallica t-shirt if it wasn't for Black Sabbath. So shut the fuck up.
Funny enough, actually, because I was going to say about like the current day sort of situation in Birmingham with how we celebrate Black Sabbath before this concert. Yeah, we had this exhibition in 2019, and it was phenomenal. Like it was just it's literally done by an organization called the Home of Metal, which have been sort of building this sort of charity and organization around the fact that Birmingham is essentially the home of metal. And they curated this exhibition with Tony and Geezer, and I think obviously with Ozzy's permission and stuff to do. It was quite good because it pretty much says exactly as I went through. You go in and then it took you to this one little room where it was going through like the Industrial Revolution of the Midlands, and then obviously there was like big Sabbath collections. And then there was this big board with I don't know what the type of chart is. You know, it was almost like a mind map where it had Black Sabbath, and then it has like I've got a picture of it here. So then it's got like an arrow pointing off, and then you've got like industrial metal, and then how that leads to digital metal, trans metal. You've got like Black Sabbath going off to gothic metal, going off into symphonic, gothic doom, so and so, metalcore, death metal, grindcore, thrash metal, biker metal, and then all the subgenres coming off of those. Like obviously then you've got Black Sabbath into glam metal, into hair metal. You got Black Sabbath into black metal, into death metal, into melodic death metal, into slam death metal. Like
It's so funny.
it's such an interesting.
It's just so funny though. Like you don't like it's metal's the only genre of music that can do this because you don't have like obviously you have like you know pop music you can have like synth pop or whatever, but it's like a few kind of categories. Whereas if you look at like you said like a tree of categories of metal, you're like, what are even half of these categories?
There's there's a series called what's it called? It's by Sam Dunn. Oh, it's called The Evolution of Metal. It's done by Sam Dunn, and he pretty much goes through this sort of tree sort of thing with like the different offcuts of metal. But again, all of them started with Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. And yeah, like a couple of years ago, we've got Black Sabbath Bridge now with the bench on that's got all the Sabbath members. Ozzy came over to unveil one of the trams under his name. We've got Ozzy the Bull in Grand Central Station. We're so proud of Black Sabbath, and I feel like sometimes it's because we've got nothing else to be proud for at times. Because, like I said earlier,
You've Gerald Tolkien. What are you on about?
well, yeah, there is that as well.
We've nothing else to be proud of except one of
We
the
have 2 things.
cornerstones of fantasy writing.
Okay, we have 2 things.
Yeah, 2 very important things.
What I find funny as well is when you go into our main gallery, it's like it's a mix of like an art gallery and a museum. You've literally got this statue, and I never quite clicked of what it was, but it's kind of like this angel, but he's not. It doesn't quite look like an angel. It doesn't quite look like a human. And I looked it up. It's Lucifer. We literally have Lucifer as the main statue in our gallery, and it's like imagine trying to pull that shit in America.
Oh yeah, I love that. I've seen that
Yeah,
before. I didn't know that was in Birmingham. I want to go see
yeah.
it.
But imagine like your main like statue being Lucifer.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So it's like we really embrace this. We've kind of moved from being this sort of fearing of Black Sabbath and the occult to fully embracing it here, and I absolutely adore it. And I think this is again why this show that they're putting on couldn't be anywhere else but here. Not only is it their home ground, but it is just like yeah. I'm really excited as well to see like if they do like any interviews with people before the
Yeah.
show and what Tobias has to say on the Midlands and the fact that, you know.
His interview's gonna be like 40 minutes long.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry you have to come to Aston because it is a bit of a shithole, but Stan. But that's pretty much all I have to like quickly put everything in a nutshell is yay us.
Yeah,
Too long
it's
didn't read, yay us.
yeah, but it's good to be proud of it because like it is really important, and that's why like whenever people say Ghost isn't metal, I was like because he's not trying to be modern metal, he's trying to be you know i- in air quotes like
Reminiscent of this era.
primordial, a kind of
Mm.
primordial metal in a way, like what what it was like when it wasn't broken down into 50 billion subgenres and everybody fighting with each other over who sounds more metal or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
basically just going back to the roots.
yeah.
He's I think this is how we described it when we were talking about especially like Opus.
Mm.
How it's supposed to be like it was reminiscent of like older metal, like the early stages of it. And like even like James Hetfield said like it reminded him of music that he grew up with.
Yeah.
So
Which would have been like bands like I said, Diamond Head, they Metallica literally covered, and they're from Stourbridge, which is just down the road from me, which is it blows my mind. That like apparently as well that I've not ever found the source for this because it's come from word of mouth through family members who know
Mm.
other band members. Like I said, my stepdad knows part of the Tipton family from Judas Priest, but apparently at some point Lars Ulrich stayed in Dudley for a little while, which I was like, you fucking what?
you fucking what?
You fucking what, mate? But yeah, sorry, what was you gonna say, Alana? I think I cut you
No,
off.
I was gonna say it was just odd, like Metallica fact for Northern Ireland. They played the sports centre that's in my town one
Oh,
time.
really?
Yeah, and then Megadeth played it there too, and had to be escorted out by police because he started talking about the IRA. And
That sounds about
Oh,
the
Lord.
same.
yeah, like the town I'm in is like especially during the Troubles is mostly Protestant rather than Catholic. Like there are obviously Catholics that live in Antrim and stuff like that there, but yeah, Antrim is not the town to talk. Was at that time was not the time to talk about the IRA, and so they had to get escorted out with police protection. So that I just find that funny. But I just found it so funny that Metallica played my town at one point because like nobody even plays Belfast anymore. I was like,
They
come
there
back.
used to be in fact ironically it is still called the Odeon. It's just an Odeon cinema, as in the Odeon cinema chain. But there used to be a venue called the Odeon It's in literally the high street. It's always been a cinema for as long as I can remember, as long as I'm pretty sure if I've been born. But like, it used to be such a big venue. Like, I think my dad said like the Ramones played there and like smashed it up or something, and AC/DC and all this stuff. And like, yeah, I don't know why that's relevant, but it just came to my head.
No, but it's one of the things. It's so funny to think about all these bands at one point. Like it's so funny to think about like a band like Black Sabbath playing a bar, and people who were
Yeah.
in there at the time being like, "Who are these guys?"
Well, it's like I said, the Crown in Birmingham. You can't go in there because it's literally been boarded up for as long as long as I remember. It's literally right next to New Street Station. I've been outside it loads, and I've always gone past and pointed it out to my friends and stuff. I do also have. I'm not that I'm letting on to everyone my secrets, but I've had this idea but it's I don't even know how you would even get Sharon Osbourne on board because I don't have any money. But when you go to Liverpool, you go to you can get in these black cabs with these tour guides, and they will
Mm,
take you around Liverpool, um, show you obviously where like the Beatles lived and the history, like the different historical points.
yeah.
I have a business venture. It's going to be called Black Sabbath. Same setup, but I'll take you to Ozzy's house. I'll take you to the Crown. I'll take you to
That's
all these
amazing.
different places. Winston Green Prison, where Ozzy got arrested. And I'm just saying, I would be making bank if I
You
had that
would
up and running
actually.
by the time the show starts, but
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
know how to get the
surprised.
licensing for that.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised Sharon hasn't tried to do something with the Crown. Like, if it is so, like, you could turn it into a Black Sabbath museum.
Well, that is apparently come up and coming. I think they're investing. They're going to be doing a museum. They're doing a music school for underprivileged kids.
Oh, that's nice.
I know there's a lot of stuff you could say about the Osbournes with certain beliefs and things like that, but in terms of like what they've put back into our city,
Yeah.
I have to like commend them for that.
On a sad note, I did see that Ozzy said he can't walk anymore.
Yeah, they're gonna wheel him on apparently.
Oh,
But
so sad,
I think because there's this whole debate of like whether the show will even go ahead because of Ozzy's health. But as far as what I've heard, I think if he was to die or can't do it, they're just gonna carry on doing it anyway as like a
Yeah.
tribute.
It's just so sad. It's more like it's odd being in this age and seeing so many people that you really liked growing up, getting older and older and older. And it's just like, oh, stop.
You know what's insane as well? Apparently, I was looking at some interviews about this show the other day because obviously just trying to get into an insight of how it's going to work. As Ozzy's always been a Villa fan, and obviously it's being held at Villa Park. He's never been inside it because he couldn't. Apparently, he couldn't afford to, so he used to just go and sit like either on a car outside and try and listen to the game. And then obviously Sabbath took off, and then obviously he couldn't go in because he'd get mobbed. So he's actually never been inside Villa. So this is going to be the first time he's been inside Villa.
That's mad.
Yeah. But yeah. Speaking of Villa, so we've got the show announced, and obviously, like I said, we had the unveiling of Papa's name.
The
So
accidental leaking.
yeah. So should we get into the theories?
Yeah.
So obviously the name's been announced as Papa V 5 ? Because of a theory I've got that my friend Hannah pointed out. Perpetua. Yeah. Who wants to go first?
I think it's really interesting that he seems to have dropped the emeritus name. So it already kind of gives you an idea of what character this is going to be. Like, he's not like yes, he is the fifth Papa, but he's not following after Neil.
Yeah.
Like, and I find that like it already kind of gives you an idea of him being maybe a bit more antagonistic towards Neil, like not in a funny kind of way that Copia has, but in more of a I'm doing it my way type thing,
Well, like how obviously Cardinal Copia didn't know that Neil was his dad, and obviously he didn't carry the title for a while. And we're under the assumption that obviously he has a twin.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know that. So again, could this Papa Perpetua have been like whatever their birth story was, and they were split at birth? Like, was he raised by someone else, and that's why he doesn't carry the title? Assuming it's a he.
Yeah,
well, I do kind of like think that as well. Like I thought that before, and that like if they were gonna play around with this twin thing, because it wasn't something that was brought up before, and honestly, we only like just fairly recently confirmed that sister is in fact his mother and Nil is in fact his father. Because before it was just all just up in the air. Who knows what else wasn't like told to him. So it's possible that he doesn't know, and maybe even Nil doesn't know.
Mm.
So I don't know.
That's going to be a very
But
good
that's one
conversation.
thing. I will say this. I I am in the belief that it is in fact a he, because
Yeah.
the title is Papa, not
Mm.
sister or mama or mother, nothing like that. Um, because I saw like a ton of people like assuming it was going to be either like a woman or like even trying to pull something like saying like, oh, it's going to be a trans person, um like a trans papa. And not saying like that's like a terrible idea or anything, like obviously
Mm.
it's not, but like but what I'm saying is just like that would just be a weird direction. And it's also implying that Tobias wouldn't be fronting the band, which
Mm.
in my opinion would be career unaliving.
Yes.
Mm. I mean, obviously, when you Google Perpetua, it's about, the first thing that comes up is about, how do you say her name? Is it Vibia? Vibia? Vibia Perpetua?
I think so. I don't know.
But
It's Latin.
yeah, it's Latin. But two things on that. Obviously, she's female, and that's where I think a lot of people pulled the theory out.
Yeah.
Man has not been scared to use a female name before. I mean, look at Mary Gore,
Yeah.
and still was presenting as male. Non-binary at best, if he's going to go down that route.
Yeah.
The second thing I have on that, the fact that it's Vibia/Vibia Perpetua, and then like we've got V for 5. That is, is the V? Does the V mean 5? Does the V mean Vibia? Who knows?
I do think it's
Mhm.
interesting that like I know it's probably leaning more towards the Latin of like eternal or continuous or whatever, but I do find it interesting that he has picked a word that also is the name of a Christian martyr, because the whole point of her is it was supposed to show that the kind of religion of Christianity kind of transcended class and all that there, because she was executed along with slaves,
Mm,
you know. And that's I don't, I'm not entirely sure know why she's like, what happened, or I haven't really fully looked into her yet, because again, like I don't think she is as relevant, you know.
It's
Like I
just a
don't.
namesake
Yeah,
influence.
it just happens to match the word, because he is probably more interested in the word than people attached to it. You know what I mean?
That's kind of how I was taking it too, that I didn't think it was being based on a specific person, but more just like what the name means itself.
Which is eternity/forever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like, this was kind of mentioned, like I think off, off quote unquote camera,
Yeah.
but
Off mic.
off mic, where it's like, it's funny how with Papa Four or Copia, it's like his whole thing was like nothing ever lasts forever, and then the new guy is literally named Forever.
Mm. Which
Pick a land forge.
Wi- wasn't there a theory to do with, because obviously we've got this high speculation of
Yeah.
him potentially going half-mast, mastless, just face paint,
Mhm.
whatever. And once he's gone into that, there's no kind of coming back from it, because there's only so much you can change from there. Like unless
Yeah.
he gets plastic surgery, or you can change the face paint and maybe the mask shape. The base of it is gonna be pretty consistent if he carries on going down that route. So there's
Yeah.
the whole thing of, is this going to be the last Papa we see? But is he's going to last until he quits?
Yeah.
Which could still be 30, 40 years.
I do think it is interesting that he's gone for a name that means, because also as well when you think about it, like all the other, it goes kind of like out of the left of way he's been naming the papas, because obviously they've been naming 1, 2, 3. Like you have Copia, which is like for copy, and people are like, who's he copying? I still think it just means copy of Tobias, but and then he changed his title because like they don't really call him Copia. They call like in the movie they called him Cardi. You know, so his name wasn't like we call him Copia, and there's that little clip at the beginning of whenever you've seen it in the cinema where he said Copia is, you know, panicking about dying or whatever. Like they're the only two. Like we call him Copia, and Saltarian called him Copia in that one wee clip, but in the movie they refer to him as Cardi. You know, so my point is, it's just the naming conventions. I find kind of interesting that he's kind of gone off, you know, kilter. Like he hasn't. I don't even know what the Latin for 5 is, but you know, but he's kind of gone off kilter with the naming, which he had, you know, which is for the last 10 plus years he's been kind of going on. So it's gonna be interesting to see what this era is gonna look like, you know. And then also, as well, as somebody pointed out, that the font that was used for the V and the font that was used on the website is the same that was used for the Repugnant album.
Epitome of Darkness.
And everyone was like, McMerry-Gore's coming back.
Well, if he is going half mask, and it technically is.
I was about to say, if it's half mask or just face paint, it would literally be Mary Gore.
Yeah.
So he's somewhere, or they.
There he is. There he is.
Going back to the name quickly, I find the word order changed interesting as well, because it's not like Papa Perpetua 5 or V, or like Papa Perpetua the first or anything, or just Papa Perpetua. It's Papa V Perpetua, which is like rather than, because obviously it wasn't it wasn't Papa 2 Emeritus.
Yeah.
Example.
That the word order change.
It is interesting, but like it also wouldn't make sense if they named him Papa Perpetua 5, because
it's like 4 more
but yeah,
before.
putting it in that order, like Papa Perpetua 5 implies that there's Papa Perpetua 1, Papa Perpetua 2, that's what that implies. So it kind of is kind of going where you're said, where like he is the 5th Papa technically, but he's like separated from the Emeritus line, even though technically he may be part of the Emeritus bloodline. He's not associating with it.
Yeah. I want to talk about a quick color theory that I have, which has slightly been somewhat kind of debunked by, ironically, the church themselves. So I was looking on a bunch of Metallica forums. It turns out Ghosts have their own thread on there, and I was reading back to when Neil had just been revealed, and they didn't know about Cardinal yet, and when the Cardinal era and Prequel era was just about to kick in, the website completely was just red, like everything was red. So obviously that implies, like, and obviously we'd seen the red cardinal and the square hammer video, so obviously the links there can be made. So then that got me thinking, with the amount of purple that we've been seeing with like the tour poster and the V is coming, I was like, okay, is there a, you know, you've got like purple when it comes to royalty and things, but I was like, I don't think it's going to be that. Let me look into this. And it turns out that members of clergies and, you know, holy people tend to wear purple during the time of Lent. And I was like, okay, when is Lent this time around? It starts on March the 5th this year.
Yep.
Which I thought is interesting, because that's the day the comic comes out. And also on March the 7th, which is Friday, which is when a lot of new music gets released, was to do with the Feast of Perpetua, to celebrate her, which I was like, oh, so that is interesting. And then I was like, okay, I know Lent's meant to be 40 days. Like I said, I'm not in the Jesus fan club, so I wasn't too clued up on this. I just know that Lent is meant to be 40 days. So I typed like 40 days from March the 5th, which is when Lent starts. Originally, I got the date as the 14th of April. And I was like, the day before tour? This is all convenient. But then it turns out, because my friend was like, yeah, but Lent's like, Easter Sunday is like several days after, and, you know, like, I googled the end of Lent and it was like Thursday the 17th, and I was like, what the fuck, this doesn't make sense. Turns out they don't count Sundays in their weeks, and I'm like, but then it's not 40 days. So the church is being very contradictory as per usual, but nevertheless, it's still around. Like the Birmingham show is ironically on Easter Sunday, Which ironically, the last time I saw him in Birmingham was on Easter Sunday. So what the fuck is going on? Anyway,
He just likes coming up for a carvery. Yeah.
my brain has just exploded because I don't know what that link is, but here we are. But I don't know, I'm still holding on to that has something to do with it, and that Lent is my theory, and that's why it's purple.
I did see someone point out that the colors that have kind of popped up so far kind of match the Hectome vinyl as well.
Again, Marigold's coming back.
Yeah, it is kind of funny though that I do feel like he is and also as well just coincidentally the fact that the Repugnant album went up for sale on the Ghost website as well at one point, but I know that's just them clearing stock really, but it's just funny that it's all kind of connected at the same time.
It's just, at this point, it's just like a little too many coincidences. Like the fact that the color scheme and the font are very reminiscent of Epitome of Darkness, and the fact that we're like it's looking like, at least I'm very hoping that it's like either half mask or just face paint, and it's just like, dude, what are you up to right now? I will say this, and I was kind of waiting to bring this up, because because it is labeled as Papa 5. That means, at least in my opinion, this is not a resurrected past Papa. Specifically, this is not a resurrected Terzo.
Because of the purple.
And because a lot of people like just assume this because they're just really diehard like Terzo stans. And I do want to go on record and say that if Terzo is your favorite Papa, and that that's just it, that he's just your favorite Papa and that's just who you like and that's where it ends, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people who make it their life's mission to try and turn everything into Terzo's coming back theory. And I'm just like, I am tired. I am at my limit, and this is not what's happening.
I tell you what, if for whatever reason Terzo does come back, I have a bottle of the Ghost Gin. I hate the taste of it. I've only ever done 10 shots of it once when we lost the Grammys. If for whatever reason Terzo does come back, I will go on camera and take 20 shots of that gin and say I was wrong.
Yeah, I will fully own up and be like, wow, you guys are finally right.
I was gonna say, well, we're all gonna be at the Manchester show, so just bring a flask of it, and then we'll all just down our sorrows.
Yeah,
I will run around the streets in my underwear. That's how much I'm willing to bet that it's not going to be Terzo.
That's kind of where I'm at, and like I'm a firm believer that this won't happen. However, I will eat my own shoe if I am wrong. And that's something I pride myself in. It's like, if I am wrong about something, I will own up to it, and I will call myself out, all that type of thing. But until that happens, until I am proven wrong, I am gonna die on this hill.
Yeah.
I just think what annoys me about it is the fact that we spent the entire time when Copia was Papa, spend the entire time talking about how he was going to die at the end of it and Terzo was going to come back, to the point where we give a fictional character anxiety. You know what I mean? Like,
we bullied him into this.
Literally, we literally bullied anxiety into a fictional character, and he made a whole movie about it. Like,
this fan base is too powerful.
But it's just really sad because I feel like Copia never got, like, I don't feel like Copia really got to be Papa without people constantly talking about him dying at the end of it. Because like, I fully believed that he wasn't going to die, because there's like he didn't just kill all the Papa. Like, I know I've said this. I feel like I've said this 40 times, but I'll say it for another 45 times if I have to. But he didn't kill the Papas just because
for a gag.
Funny or a gag.
Yeah,
you know?
I was saying this yesterday in a reply, because someone someone was like, "Oh, well, oh, this band has a story where like you have like farting ghosts and like you resurrect a guy to play the saxophone, so it's not completely outside the realm of possibility to
Yeah.
bring back a dead character." And I'm like, I understand what you're saying, but the problem with what you're saying, or just like what you're forgetting, is there was a lot of symbolism behind killing off Terzo.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, Terzo is the one that they specifically focus on in that chapter.
Yep.
Uh, he's the one that they specifically focus on. He is the one that you physically see them actually kill off.
Yep.
Um, and you have the Metal Hammer magazine cover where Cornucopia is specifically holding a severed Terzo head. It's super symbolic because he is literally killing off what we knew about Ghost at that point. He's
Hmm.
killing off that era of Ghost,
Yeah.
because there was so much bad associated with that, especially Terzo,
Yeah.
because that was when he was betrayed by people he thought he were his friends,
Yeah.
that tried to sue him, ruin his name, ruin his career. He was super isolated during that period of time. Prequel as a whole is a diss track. It is literally a hate album. And Tobias has gone on record and said, like, he was going through a hard time when writing Prequel because he was like alone a lot of the time. So it's like literally he was just like he was just completely distancing himself from everything we knew about ghosts up until that point. He was just like, all right, new year, new me.
Yeah.
We're done. We're done.
Yeah, it's
So
all like I do definitely feel like Tobias would rather pull his own teeth out than be Terzo again. Like, just
Hmm.
to be frank, you know what I mean? Like because here's the thing: we've had the chapters, and as we said, we live in like Ghost lives in a universe where people can come back as knockoff Star Wars ghosts,
mhm.
and he has yet to do that with any of the Papas.
Hmm.
You know what I
He's
mean?
only done it with these new characters because, like, again, like if you think about it, Ghost as a whole, like everything changed when the Fire Nation
With the
attacked.
fire dishes.
Everything changed when
Ang, save
when
us!
when this new era started, like when he decided to go in this direction with like Cardinal, like the music changed,
It got gayer.
it got gayer. He introduced a storyline, he introduced new characters, like all these like different new costumes, like
Yeah,
multiple costume changes, like literally just like like the ghost we knew before completely different now,
yeah.
completely different. There were
He
some
was a
elements that transferred over, but this was a new, basically almost a new band.
Yeah, he was a
Hmm.
theater kid that was unattached to people who didn't enjoy theater kid antics.
Yeah, but yeah,
No, it's
end of
not
the day,
cool to do 16 different costume changes, Tobias. And then he's like, they're gone now? 16 different costume changes. Tricycle on stage.
yeah. But end of the day, that's kind of like the main takeaway is that like
Yeah,
there was so much symbolism behind him killing off Terzo that bringing him back genuinely does not make sense,
no.
and like it would just be very confusing. And it's the fact that so many people like that I feel like is like pretty, I think that should be pretty easy to see and understand, but there's still so many like diehard like, no, but like trust me.
Hmm.
Like I
I
saw
think
this like
I
I
think it
saw
was
this
you
one
said
person.
I think you said last time. I'm not entirely sure when you said it, but I think you said at one point, like it's the people who missed out on Turzo whenever he was at his prime. They want to have that, you know?
Yeah, FOMO.
Mhm.
It was on the last episode, I think.
Yeah, FOMO, yeah. And
Yeah,
but it's one of those
because
things where it's like you wouldn't get that Turzo though.
Mm.
Like
mhm,
in
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean,
like
if
even
he
if he
came
did
back,
bring, like that was what 7 years
8
ago.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and like so much has happened since then that you wouldn't
also
get that same character, you know?
also one of the charming things about Terzo is the fact that at that point they were still small and they were
Yeah,
Mm.
still on like a really like almost nothing budget. Great on Terzo, he did win a Grammy. I will give him that. He won a Grammy, but they were still performing in like record shops.
Yeah.
He was like bringing CVS bags on stage, like and like badly
Bedazzle
playing a
Amazing.
eyeglasses.
kazoo. So it just wouldn't be the same. Also, I feel like a lot of the things. This is just me personally. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm being a dick writer right now, but all the things that people like about Terzo, Copia does as well.
Oh yeah, he's
Mhm.
as
Like,
much as a
oh,
slut.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Copia is very slutty. Copia is very like flamboyant. He is way more energetic than Terzo on stage. He's like more hypersexual in my opinion.
Yeah.
So literally all the elements of Terzo that people like love and cling on to, like Copia does as well, if not more.
Mm.
So you have that, and then I just find that a lot of people who are like banking on this theory of like, oh, Terzo's coming back, are all people that never got to experience him. They never
Yeah.
knew him, so they're like,
Mm.
oh, I want him back because I need him.
And what's to say? Like, let's just throw like a complete wild card here. Let's say
Mhm.
they got his head, they got his body, they stitched him back together. They were like, "All right, you're going back for a second chance." What's not
Mhm.
to say he's like, "I'ma do it, but I'ma be a fucking I don't know if I can say cunt on here.
You just say
Twat. I'm gonna be a fucking cunt." But not in the slay way. He's gonna come out and be a complete like menace, dickhead, like evil. He wants revenge. He is
Yeah.
like, and so like you say, he's not going to be the Tezo you know and love, and you're just going to be disappointed.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's just like it just would be it would just be a cheap shot, honestly. It would just be a cheap shot to just bring back someone from the past.
Mm,
And then like, it wouldn't live up to the same hype because, everyone has seen like the same like 40 videos or
mm,
whatever videos of this man. And he would be completely different now. And it's just like everyone would be upset. And it's
mm.
just it just
He's not.
doesn't make sense. And also, if you're basing your theory on like really random parts, like I saw someone say, okay, well, explain if he's really dead, then why are there scratch marks on his coffin? I'm like, you mean the plastic box with a mannequin that travels across the US for months at a time? Why
Mm.
does that have scratches on it? I need you it's important
Gee,
to
I
me.
don't know.
It's important to me that you understand this is a mannequin in a plastic box. It's so
Yeah.
important to me that you know this.
Oh, going back quickly to the Perpetua name.
Mm.
Mhm.
I've seen a few different theories that actually tie into right here, right now, that may or may not have been Easter eggs. So, there was a definition of Perpetua which meant that it was defined as a housekeeper to the priest.
Yeah.
And I made a joke being like, that's why there was a janitor at the end. Not saying that he's gonna be the next papa, but it's just a little nod to this is what's coming. And also, after Spillways, just before Cerise, when Sister and Copia have that talk, and he's like, why can't this go on for even longer? Almost forever. And like laughs. I was
Mhm.
like, and obviously Perpetua meaning forever. We were like,
Yeah.
ha. So that could be an Easter egg. Also, this is just a side tangent. I just googled because I was trying to find what that said about the Pope housekeeper. So I just typed in Perpetua Pope. Turns out there's a painter called Perpetua Pope. Do you want to know where she's from?
Birmingham?
Birmingham.
She's from Birmingham.
Full circle.
It's
She.
cyclical.
I'm just
That's it.
saying.
Okay, we're done now.
With Papa doing this performance, he's getting a Villa shirt from what I've seen, and with this new discovery, I'm making it canon that the next Papa's a Brummie. I'm just saying.
Oh, but that means he has to mimic a Brummie accent.
He does that anytime. Right, I need to. I'm coming for Tobias here. Anytime he does an English accent, like to take the piss, he always sounds a little bit Brummy. But I think it's because he's hung around with Lee Dorian a lot, who's from the Midlands.
Yeah.
So whenever he does like an English impression, it always sounds a bit Brummy-esque. Like, I'll be lucky to sell 1,000 copies of these, and I'm like, that's a Brummy accent. Or having my coffee. Having my coffee.
But it's funny. It's funny when he does it for just a one little clip. But like, imagine like that's his talking voice this whole era.
I'm down. I don't care. I'm down.
Okay, so here's my crazy thing related to Perpetua.
Okay.
Okay, so the last album was Impera, about the rise and fall of empires, right?
Oh, this is going to be good. I mean, genuinely, this is going to be good.
So Julius Caesar, everybody got pissed at him because he tried to make himself emperor for life. And they were like, no, that's not how this works, buddy. Time for stabs.
We're all just gonna stab Caesar.
Exactly. So, my theory is going to go one of two ways. Either the new guy is going to come in, Twinopia, as we call him, is going to come in, and he's going to say, okay, cool, I'm Papa forever now. And Copia is going to have to fight him. And that's why Saltarian was training him. Or slightly, this one's a little shakier. Or something's going to happen and Copia is going to like push him aside and say, no, I'm just Papa forever now. And he's either going to have to fight him off or something's going to happen. And that's going to be Copia's downfall.
Okay, your brain is too big.
I suggest it's going to be a battle of Papas. I suggest
Going to recreate the Omen 3!
finally! And he's going to fix it. No, but if there's going to be a battle of Papas, I suggest that the kind of gladiator style thing where they stand on two podiums with big giant.
Oh my god, the earbuds.
Cleaners and just slap each other.
Guys, shut up. Shut up. The boxing glove, the boxing robe, the fact he says Hadouken.
Hadouken!
We're getting a street fighter here.
Oh my god, could you
Talk about a street fight!
Oh my god, no, it's gladiators a thing in the US, as in the TV show where people in spandex hit each other with giant Q-tips.
I don't think it is.
Oh, it's you need to watch it.
I know about it. I don't think it's a thing here.
Gladiators ready.
I loved Gladiators growing up.
It was a thing in the 90s.
Oh yeah, and then like it's just been redone over here now.
Yeah,
again, that was from Birmingham. That they used to film that in Birmingham. I'm just saying we're great.
And you're from there, like it's clearly the best city.
Aww.
Anybody thank Alva for being a Brummie?
Thank you.
I would just like to say I am responsible for Ghost. Just saying.
And Lord of the Rings.
And Lord of the Rings.
Which unfortunately keeps inspiring Nazis for some reason.
Oh god.
Like they missed the point.
Yeah, they missed the point big time on that one.
I'm just saying, Tobias is a metal fan. Tobias is a Lord of the Rings fan. He owes us big time.
It is going to be interesting to see. I wonder if seeing Vessel from Sleep Token inspired him to do this half mask thing, because he probably maybe seen Vessel and went, that's the thing I can do, and nobody told me at any point in the last 15 years of this band's existence. Because like Vessel wears he has like a mask, like a half. It's not half mask. Because it still covers most of his face. All you can see is his
mouth,
and it keeps his chin free. But you can't see any of his face. And he wears like that. Like he literally just wears black body paint and a robe and no socks, which I think's insane. Well, no, I think he wears socks. He doesn't wear shoes. But again, still insane.
I think he wears those like ninja style things now.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sleep Token, with the Black Sabbath show, I think there's only two drummers. It's the drummer from Tool, 3, Tool, Faith No More, and Sleep Tokens 2, or I don't know how they say it. I'm not
2. It's 2.
So I wonder which drummer he's going to, because the way the supergroup I assume is going to work is like obviously the people that are in the named category as individual artists will be the ones that are like interchanging with each other. So like, can you imagine like there's, let's say, Sleep Token's drummer Tobias singing, Duff McKagan, he's one of the bassists, and who could be the guitarist? Maybe Slash, because Slash is on there as a named person.
Yeah.
Or like you then get like Tobias with the drummer from Tool, with Billy Corgan and Jakey Lee.
It's
I
gonna
don't
be
know which variation it's going to be. I'm excited, and also what song.
Also, it's worth noting that at least with the way that this show was advertised, it doesn't look like it's going to be device free. So this would probably be the only time we could have like a fan video of Papa V.
I'm gonna recreate that. If I manage to get tickets, I'm gonna get the Mrs. Doubtfire. Help is on the way, dear.
Um,
My time to shine.
just a quick thing, because we saw like a few people like say this online, and just want to make sure everyone understands, because the way it was announced, only Papa V was mentioned with Ghost as like the individual person,
Yeah.
meaning no ghouls will be here. So unfortunately, there will be no ghoul content from this show. I'm so sorry to all the ghoul stannies.
Yeah. Anyone else got any other theories?
Terzo's dead, but Kobe forever, baby.
Yeah, could be lived. No, but it's hard. There's not a lot really to go off of, right? Other than
No,
like,
not yet.
you know, we've got that silhouette of him with the nails.
Mm.
You know, I wonder if he's gonna go back to them gloves, or if he's just stuck on whatever he had. You know,
Yeah, but the
this is the
nails,
shit that I have in there. You know,
the nails is what makes me think, like, it didn't look like gloves though. It looked like someone's actual hand. So that's why I think that the person behind the door is Ashley carrying the regalia.
that'd be so funny if it was.
I don't think it's Papa Five. I think it's Ashley with the regalia.
I will piss myself. I will piss myself.
She just walks in and is like, "Oh, where is he? He's gone. Why are you wearing that? I just wanted to see how it would look."
Or we're like, oh, my hands were full.
They look so comfy. Like when she was bundled up in the robe in the
She
movie.
really did. I'm so jealous.
It's like like literally Ashley living out everybody's dream. It's like just like cozied up in the thing, and like even like Kobe like gave her like a rose while like she was like help getting him dressed. I'm like,
Just had a thought. What if um in terms of the twins, it's sister, as in hear me out. I'm not I'm not finished. So it's sister, and the person that comes through the door is actually sister, who is the mother of Papa Five. So, but she's coming in because she's like this high priestess, hence why she does the nails and the big hat. She's coming in as this high priestess, and he's like, "Oh, he's not here right now. I've sent him on tour, and we still haven't seen him yet." And that is who's behind the door. And
If
yeah,
that
it's
is what
sister's a twin.
happens, I will flip shit.
Hmm.
well,
I
you know,
flip a table.
I do wonder if we will actually get more information about this with the comic book series that's supposed to be coming out with Sister. Like, you know, it's part of me is like wondering if more will be revealed about this era, like through this storytelling, because we'll see the beginning. Obviously, I think the first two comics are based on like Sister's upbringing before getting involved with the clergy, and then at least by 3, I think that's when she's more involved, because and at least on the cover of that one that she's pregnant, and we know that before she got pregnant, she was involved with the clergy. So maybe, who knows?
Yeah, so
You know,
maybe
I wonder. I wonder if the cover of the fourth comic will be like very revealing about something or another.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's another thing. Like, the redacted title for the tour. Like they said that, you know, somebody suggested that means the tour could be called the
Perpetua
Tour. Perpetua Tour.
Perpetua.
Aw,
Yeah.
Perpetua.
Yeah.
It could.
Perpetua. That made it sound like
Perpetua.
it's Peppa Pig.
No, but one thing I wanted to mention as well was if you look at the Meliora album, if you look at the art for Meliora, anytime Papa's in there, it's Papa 2. And even in the Cerise video, it was Papa 2. So it just shows you that, like, for Meliora at least, he still hadn't kind of settled on what Terzo was going to look like by the time that came out. God knows if he's still settled at this point. He still might not know what the fuck this man's going to look like. You know what I mean? Like, he could still be sitting there going, I am the odd days out from this tour starting.
So to wrap up, by the time this episode comes out, knowing our luck, we're gonna know this episode is gonna be completely irrelevant, and we're gonna have all the answers. We're
Fingers
crossed
crossed.
questions in this, just knowing our luck.
Yeah.